It's strange how quickly peace can turn into chaos. For 25 years, my wife and I lived in our quiet little home at the edge of Willow Creek. We weren't rich, not by a long shot, but our house was ours. Every creaking wooden stair and every stubborn window had a story behind it. We raised our children there, buried our old dog under the oak tree in the backyard, and built a life brick by brick. So when the new HOA came into power in our neighborhood, I thought it wouldn't matter much to me. I had always kept to myself, paid my dues on time, and never caused trouble. But I was wrong, dead wrong. The first sign came one morning as I was sipping coffee on the porch. A white SUV pulled up, and 3 board members stepped out. At their head was Linda Monroe, the self-proclaimed president of the HOA. She had that smile, the kind that never reached her eyes, Mr. Parker. She said sweetly, "We've noticed your fence is about 2 inches higher than regulation allows. You'll need to fix that by the end of the month." I looked at the fence. It had been there for years, standing proud, weathered by time. "That fence was built before your HOA ever existed," I replied calmly. Her smile tightened. "Rules are rules, and we enforce them." I thought that was the end of it. Just a petty power move. But I had no idea they had already set their eyes on me for something much bigger. 2 weeks later, I came home from work and found deep scratch marks on the corner of my garage door. It wasn't vandalism. It looked deliberate, like someone had dragged something heavy against it. My stomach tightened. That night, my wife Mary sat across the table, her brow furrowed. "Do you think the HOA is targeting us?" I sighed. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but it feels like we're being watched. Mary reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. Her voice trembled. "Promise me we won't let them bully us out of our own home." I promised. But in the back of my mind, fear was already creeping in. It happened on a cold Saturday morning. I opened the front door and froze. My driveway was blocked. A massive trench at least 3 feet wide and deep had been dug right along the perimeter of my property line. It was as if someone had drawn a scar around my home, dirt piled high, blocking the way in and out. My neighbor stood at a distance, whispering, pointing. My chest tightened with rage. I stormed out to confront the workers with shovels in their hands. "Who gave you permission to do this?" I demanded. One of them, a young man in a reflective vest, shrugged nervously. "Orders came from the HOA board. Said this trench is part of new drainage regulations." "Drainage?" I barked. "This is harassment." Linda Monroe appeared again, smug as ever. "Mr. Parker, this is for the safety of the community. You wouldn't want flooding issues, would you?" I clenched my fists, every muscle in my body screaming to fight back. But I knew they wanted me to explode. They wanted me to look like the aggressor. So I took a deep breath and walked back inside. Mary followed, her voice cracking. "David, how much longer can we live like this?" That night, as I stood by the window staring at the trench, I whispered to myself, "They don't know I have cameras. Every single move they've made, it's all on tape." The next day, my neighbor, Mr. Whitaker, a retired Army colonel, knocked on my door. He leaned heavily on his cane, his face etched with concern. "David," he said quietly, "I shouldn't even be here. They warned us not to talk to you. But what they're doing it isn't right." I led him inside, and over a cup of tea, he explained. "The HOA has been trying to push out older residents. They want younger families, people who will fall in line and pay higher fees without questions. You're not the first they've targeted, but you might be the first who fights back." Mary's eyes filled with tears. "So they're trying to break us?" Whitaker nodded grimly. "Yes, but don't give them what they want. Whatever you do, document everything." I smiled faintly. "Already ahead of you, Colonel. They don't know I have hidden cameras around the property. Every shovel, every word, it's all recorded." For the first time in weeks, hope flickered in Mary's eyes. The days that followed were brutal. The trench remained, cutting us off from easy access. Delivery trucks refused to approach the property. Friends stopped visiting, afraid of being harassed. Mary cried at night, exhausted from the constant tension. I tried to keep strong, but anger burned inside me like fire. One evening, Linda showed up again, flanked by two board members. "Mr. Parker," she said in her syrupy voice, "we see that you're upset. But if this is too much for you, we'd be happy to recommend a realtor who could sell your home quickly. Many buyers are interested in this area." Her meaning was clear: leave or we'll make you leave. I stared her down. "This is my home. You can dig trenches, you can play your little games, but you will never break me." She laughed softly. "We'll see about that." As she walked away, I whispered under my breath, "Every villain forgets the one thing: truth always comes out." I had the proof. That night, Mary broke down. She sat on the edge of our bed, sobbing into her hands. "David, I can't live like this anymore. Every day I feel like a prisoner in my own house. What if they come after us harder? What if they hurt you?" I wrapped my arms around her. "Mary, I know you're scared. I am too. But we've spent our lives building this home. If we run now, they win. We can't let them think bullying works." Her voice cracked. "But what if it costs us everything?" For the first time, I didn't have an answer. That same week, I reviewed the camera footage, and there, it was clear as day. The HOA board members standing at the trench at midnight, laughing, pointing, even joking about how long it would take before we cracked. I felt a rush of emotions: anger, yes, but also relief. Because now, I had more than suspicion. I had evidence. The Colonel's words echoed in my head. "Document everything." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the frozen image of Linda smirking into the night. "Game over," I whispered. But I knew this was just the beginning. And so, while the HOA thought they had me cornered, they didn't realize the storm that was about to hit them. I wasn't just a homeowner fighting for Paisai, was a husband fighting for my wife's safety. A man defending the life we built with our own hands. The trench they dug around my house wasn't just dirt and soil. It was a line they crossed, one they would come to regret. Because when people push too far, they forget one thing: the quietest man often has the loudest proof. The following week was a nightmare. Every morning I woke to the sound of construction trucks parked near my home. The trench that wrapped around my property grew deeper, wider. It wasn't about drainage anymore. It was a moat, meant to isolate me. Neighbors avoided eye contact. Some even crossed the street when they saw me. The HOA was spreading lies. I could feel it. And soon enough, the whispers reached me. "They're saying you threatened Linda. They're saying you're unstable. They're saying you don't belong here anymore." Mary held my hand tightly as we walked down the driveway. Her voice shook. "David, they're trying to destroy your reputation. If people believe them, we'll be outcasts." I gritted my teeth. "Then it's time we show the truth." That night, I set up the laptop in our living room. Mary sat beside me as I scrolled through the recordings. "There," I said, pointing at the screen. The camera had caught Linda and her board members in the dead of night, standing by the trench. Their voices were crystal clear. "Let's see how long before the old man cracks. We should start fining him daily for trespassing if he crosses this trench." Laughter. Mary covered her mouth with her hand, tears welling in her eyes. "David, this is proof. They can't deny this." I nodded. "It's not just proof, it's a weapon, and I intend to use it." The next HOA meeting was packed. Curious residents filled the small community hall. I walked in with Mary by my side. Laptop bag slung over my shoulder. Linda stood at the podium, smiling like a queen before her subjects. "We're here tonight to discuss community concerns, especially those related to Mr. Parker's property." The crowd murmured. I could feel eyes burning into me. I raised my hand. "Before you speak further, I'd like to share something." Linda's smile faltered. "This is not your time to—" I cut her off, my voice firm. "It is when lies are being told." With a click, I connected my laptop to the projector. The footage appeared on the big screen. Gasps filled the room. There was Linda, laughing in the dark, plotting to break me. Her face went pale. The room erupted in whispers. Did they really do that? That's illegal. Unbelievable. I turned to the crowd. This is what your board has been doing. Not for the community's safety. Not for fairness. but for control. Mary squeezed my arm, her eyes shining with pride. For once, the power shifted. But Linda wasn't about to give up. The very next day, I received 3 violation notices in the mail. My lawn was too dry. My mailbox was unapproved design. My garage door needed repainting. All lies. All attempts to bury me under paperwork and fines. I stormed into the kitchen, slamming the papers on the table. They're doubling down, Mary. They don't care about shame. They want war. Mary placed a hand on my shoulder. Her voice was steady. Then we fight smarter, not louder. She was right. The footage was just the beginning. I had to build a case they couldn't escape. One afternoon, as I was inspecting the trench, my longtime neighbor Paul Jensen walked over. He had lived 2 houses down for nearly 20 years. We'd shared beers, barbecues, even fixed each other's roofs. But his face was cold. "David," he said stiffly, "maybe it's best if you sell. People are uncomfortable. The HOA is just doing what's best for the neighborhood." I stared at him, shocked. "Paul, you know me." "You know Mary? Do you really believe their lies?" He shifted uncomfortably. "It's not about belief. It's about peace. Sometimes you have to compromise." I shook my head. Compromise with bullies is surrender, and I won't do it. He sighed and walked away, leaving me with a pain deeper than anger betrayal. That night, as I sat in silence, Mary touched my hand. "David, don't let this break you. You've always been strong for us, for this family. But now you have to be strong for everyone they've hurt before us. Think of Colonel Whitaker. Think of the quiet families who never fought back. You have a voice. Use it." Her words hit me hard. She wasn't just my wife. She was my anchor. And she was right. The following days, something unexpected happened. One by one, neighbors began reaching out quietly. Mrs. Ramirez from across the street whispered, "They fined me for planting roses without permission," the Petersons admitted. "They threatened foreclosure over a shed we built years ago." Even Colonel Whitaker added, "They've been bleeding us all dry." I realized I wasn't alone. The HOA's fear tactics had silenced people, but my footage had lit a spark, so I invited them into my home. We sat in the living room, a dozen of us, sharing stories of intimidation. And for the first time, the fear in their eyes turned into something else's determination. "We'll stand with you," Mrs. Ramirez said firmly. "Enough is enough." At the next board meeting, I didn't go alone. 10 neighbors walked in with me. This time, Linda's confident smile wavered. I presented more footage this time showing board, members joking about targeting other families, bragging about weeding out the weak. The room exploded in outrage. People demanded resignations. Some shouted, "This is corruption. We trusted you." Linda tried to regain control, raising her voice. "These videos are taken out of context." But the damage was done. The once loyal crowd was slipping from her grasp the very next day. Things turned darker. I woke to find spray-painted words across my fence. "Traitor, rat, get out." Mary gasped when she saw it. Her hands trembled. "David, they're trying to scare us." I clenched my fists. "Good, that means they're scared." I cleaned the fence, set up even more cameras, and doubled down. Because now, this wasn't just about MIT, it was about every family they had bullied. One evening, as I was reviewing footage, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I hesitated before answering. "Mr. Parker," a deep voice asked. "This is Detective Harris, Willow Creek PD. We've received multiple complaints about harassment in your neighborhood. Would you be willing to share your video evidence with us?" My heart raced. Finally, the law was stepping in. "Yes, Detective," I replied firmly. "I have everything you need." That night, Mary couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling. "What if this gets worse before it gets better?" she whispered. "What if they come after us in ways we can't fight?" I held her close. "Mary, they've already crossed every line. But the truth is on our side, and the truth always wins." She closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. Promise me, David. Promise me we'll see the end of this together. Promise, I whispered. Within days, one of the board members, Mr. Green, resigned suddenly. Word spread quickly that he didn't want to be dragged down with the rest of them. The neighborhood buzzed with rumors. The once untouchable HOA was crumbling. Linda, however, refused to yield. She stormed up to my door one afternoon, her face twisted with fury. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "You've made powerful enemies, Parker. This isn't over." I met her gaze calmly. "You're right. It's not over. But soon it will be. And not the way you think." She stormed off, but I could see fear flickering in her eyes. The HOA had drawn their trench, thinking they'd trap me inside it. But what they didn't realize was that every shovel of dirt had only built their own grave. With evidence in my hands, allies at my side, and the law beginning to listen. The tides were shifting, yet deep down, I knew one thing. Before the truth set us free, the fight would get uglier, and the final battle was still ahead. It was just past midnight when the sound jolted me awake. Bang, bang. Mary clutched my arm. "David, someone's at the door." I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the nightstand and walked carefully toward the front door. Peeking through the peephole, I froze. It was 3 men in dark jackets, no badges visible. "Open up." One of them barked. "We're here on HOA business." My blood ran cold. HOA business at midnight? No, this wasn't official. This was intimidation. I pressed the intercom button. My voice was steady. "Step away from my property. You're being recorded on multiple cameras." The men cursed, muttered something, and hurried off into the night. Mary's hands trembled as she gripped mine. "David, what if they come back?" I pulled her close. "Let them. Every step they take, every threat they make, it's all evidence now." The very next morning, Detective Harris arrived at my door. His expression was serious. "Mr. Parker," he said, "we reviewed the footage you sent. What your HOA board is doing goes far beyond civil disputes. It borders on criminal harassment, intimidation, and conspiracy." Relief washed over me. "So, you'll take action?" He nodded. "We'll need more. Keep documenting everything. But know this, we're watching them now, too." For the first time in months, I felt the law standing beside me. That evening, Mary surprised me. She stood in our living room, facing the small crowd of neighbors who had gathered for another meeting. Her voice trembled at first, but grew stronger with every word. When this started, I was terrified. I begged David to give up, to sell the house, to just run away. But he refused. And now I see why. Because this isn't just about a house. This is about dignity. About not letting fear decide how we live. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she kept speaking. "We built our lives here. And if we stand together, no trench, no lie, no bully can tear that away." The room erupted in applause. Neighbors hugged her, some crying themselves. For Mary, who had always stayed quiet in the background, this was her moment of strength. The HOA called for an emergency community meeting. It was clear Linda was desperate to regain control. The hall was packed. Tension crackled in the air. Linda stood at the podium, her voice sharp. "These accusations are lies. These videos are taken out of context. And anyone siding with Mr. Parker is siding against this community." Boos echoed through the crowd. People were no longer afraid. I stood, holding up a folder. "Detective Harris is here tonight. And I've handed him everything, every recording, every threat, every illegal action. The law is watching." The detective, seated in the back, nodded firmly. Gasps rippled through the room. Linda's face turned red. "You can't do this. You can't," but her words were drowned out by voices shouting, "Resign! Step down! You've gone too far." And then, something I'll never forget, Colonel Whitaker, leaning on his cane, stood tall and declared, "This neighborhood belongs to the people, not to tyrants hiding behind fake rules." The crowd erupted in cheers. Linda slammed her papers down and stormed out. Within weeks, the fallout was swift. Linda and 2 board members were charged with criminal harassment and misuse of HOA funds. The trench was ordered filled immediately, the costs covered by the HOA's legal penalties. A new fair board was elected with several of the neighbors, who'd once been too afraid to speak now stepping into leadership. Mary and Shay. I watched from our porch as workers filled in the trench. The scar around our home was finally healing. One evening, Paul, my neighbor who had once turned his back on me, walked up slowly. His eyes were downcast. "David," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology. I let fear guide me. I didn't stand by you when you needed support, and I regret that." I studied him for a moment, then offered my hand. "It's not too late, Paul. What matters is we learn from it. Fear makes cowards of us, all but courage. Courage is contagious." He shook my hand firmly, tears in his eyes. Weeks later, Mary and I sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset over the newly leveled yard. She leaned against me, her voice soft. "David, we won." I smiled faintly. "No, Mary, we endured. Winning isn't about tearing others down. It's about standing when they try to break you. It's about showing them that peace and truth are stronger than fear." She wiped a tear from her cheek. "I'm proud of you." I kissed her forehead. "And I'm proud of us." As the first stars appeared in the sky, I thought about everything we had faced. The trench, the threats, the betrayals. I turned to Mary and whispered, "You know, they thought digging that trench would isolate us. But in the end, it brought people together. It made this community stronger. Maybe that's the lesson in all of this." Mary smiled softly. "What lesson?" "That sometimes the deepest trenches people dig around you only prove how high you can stand above them." We sat in silence, holding hands as the night wrapped gently around us. The war was over. The scars would fade, and the home we loved, our home, was still ours. So if you've ever faced bullies or been cornered by people who tried to scare you out of what's rightfully yours, remember this story. Remember that fear is temporary, but truth lasts forever. And maybe, just maybe, the battles we fight aren't just for ourselves, but for everyone too afraid to raise their voice.